Greetings and salutations, everybody. Let's talk about The Batman from 2022 or 2021, or I think it might have been 2020. Take your pick because, due to the pandemic, the filming and release of this film has been shifted around multiple times, but finally, this year, March 2022, we finally got this movie. So greetings and salutations once again. But before we dive into this, as a friendly little reminder about some of those YouTube things that are very important, is that if you like this content, give it a like, consider subscribing, hit that little bell icon there so you get a notification whenever I put up a new video, which is once or twice a week. Check out the back catalog if you like what you see. Share this video and page around to everybody you know because it actually helps a lot more than most people realize. So now that that is out of the way, let's talk about The Batman. This is the latest installment in the Batman franchise, latest installment from DC. And this is not to be confused with Batman from 1989, because that one didn't have "the" in the title, so it's a completely different film. I actually wish they would have just called this one Batman Vengeance instead, something that we could keep track of. I just don't like the that's happening, like The Suicide Squad. Should have been called Suicide Squad 2, or maybe Suicide Squad TOO, like Teen Wolf 2, or Mannequin 2 on the Move. Okay, that 2 thing is just a joke. Anyways, I'm rambling on here, but so here's some non-spoilers about the film. First, it's very dark. Dark, very dark, cold, brooding. Gotham is in trouble. It's been overrun with corruption. Gordon is struggling, and it has been only 2 years since the Batman has kind of showed up on the Gotham night scene, meaning fighting crime, not like whatever. But yeah, so he's already got a bit of a reputation, but not so much as rumor like he was in Batman from '89. But in an actual threat to criminals, some being actually quite scared that he's lurking in the shadows and at any time can pop out and get them. And he even says in his narration that he is the shadows at this point. He's what could be lurking, waiting for all of them. So they actually already have a lot of fear in them about the possibility of running into the Bat. This one also is much more hard-hitting. It's a hard-hitting, violent film, not so much in a graphic action way or gore, as much as think of a loud, repeated pounding on a criminal while being accentuated and amplified by like a 1,000-watt subwoofer. Batman is not coming across so much early on in the film as a smart investigator like we've seen in '89, but more that he's this dangerous lunatic who's this vigilante, which the Gotham PD really does not trust, and they have no hopes of actually keeping in check. But Gordon works with him because he knows that he can actually use him to bring down some of this criminal underworld. Of course, other cops don't trust him, and but we also get very little actual Bruce Wayne in this movie. Honestly, it felt like the important bits about Bruce Wayne, which you need in this story, and they were able to put in, were just that his parents were gunned down, he's out for vengeance, he's rich, so he has the financial resources he needs, and we get a little bit more about his parents thrown in there, throughout the story, a little bit more political perspective there. But it all works really well because it's something a little bit different from what I've seen in other Batman movies. Because the last thing I need to be told again is how Bruce Wayne became Batman. We know. And if somebody doesn't know, watch Batman '89 or, Batman Begins. I also believe they have print versions of Batman out there with pictures and everything, which can be referenced. But even if you haven't ever seen a Batman film or never read a comic or never heard about him from whatever rock you're living under, they still made this movie very accessible. It really works well because it works like this film noir, dark, investigative, violent city setting movie. None of this is making any sense. Just trying to throw some words in there to kind of get the overall feel of what this movie is. But this works well because since we get more concentration as the movie moves along on the investigation, this mystery, this crime, trying to figure out what the Riddler is up to, who the Riddler is, what is his motivation, what's the next target, when's he going to strike next. It really works well and just is gripping and pulls me right into it. And on top of all that, we also get the characters of Catwoman being brought in, which, while not as developed as some of the other films, due to this feeling more like an introduction of the character, but not really intending to shine that much, Zoe did a really great job with this role, as did an unrecognizable Colin Farrell as a Penguin, which also feels more like an introduction to his character. He's not really the shining star and the big boss of this film, which is fine because it's about the Riddler. Corruption in Gotham and this crime boss Falcone, played by John Turturro, who did a great job. But as for everybody else, Paul Dano did a great job as a Riddler in this. Came across really well, did not play up the comedy as much as we saw in the more campy version that Jim Carrey did. I know they were meaning to go more campy with that film, but I like that we get a Riddler that's a bit more serious, comes across more like a serial killer in this. Andy Serkis did great as Alfred. Jeffrey Wright did really good as Gordon as well. I mean, everybody just brought their A game. So what about the Bat himself? Robert Pattinson, I feel like after proving himself with more films in the indie scene, where he was able to show his acting ability and also develop that acting ability by not being stuck into this teen franchise, has finally paid off, because between this, Tenet, The Lighthouse breaking into mainstream, which is very odd considering the kind of film that one was, I feel like he's finally getting his due as an actor. He's finally been given a chance to show what he can do in a major Hollywood film again, and people can just shut up about Twilight already. It was the last film he did for that was 10 years ago, and there's been almost 17 different acting credits he's had since then. He has developed, and he's worth the time and consideration. There's a reason why he got this role, and it wasn't to win over the teenage girl. But now we're going to do something a little bit different from my other reviews. We are going to have some quick spoilers here, so I'm going to put up this banner up at the top. So you can forward until that banner's gone, or go over to this time frame, I guess, is where those spoilers end. So if you want, go ahead and skip forward, or if you've already seen it and are interested in spoilers, go ahead and continue watching. So now that the spoiler warning is out of the way, here's a few more things I liked. The Joker. The seed has been planted. I don't feel like we need it, but it's nice to know that they apparently have an idea of where they would like to take this if it works out, which, looking at this opening weekend, it's going to work out. The Penguin, seeing him almost more like a henchman in a way compared to the power that Falcone has was really interesting, and I can't wait to see where they take that. I hear rumors about a possible TV show or something that's going to focus on the Penguin, but that's just rumors that I've heard so far. Gotham Flooding, this whole idea that the city is under such a crisis that you're going to have a lot of looting and violence, it gives Batman another need to be in the city to help them. And I really think it's great that they set that up. But the most important one, I think, is the good cops. Because, there are some issues with the police force. We read about it in the news all the time. And they could have easily leaned into that narrative and kind of made all of the cops corrupt, all of them bad, and get everybody against them. And now that might give a good connection to how some people are feeling about the police currently. I think it would also be a little bit too on the nose and would alienate other moviegoers. So this idea that, yes, there is corruption, there is problems with the police force, but no, not every cop is on the take, and there are enough of them for Gordon to cherry pick who he needs to try to get this city under control. The ones who are not on the take, the ones who are actually in it for the good of Gotham. I think that's a really great route to go with that. So you could still be against the corruption, but not against Gotham PD. I think it works out great. So I'm going to go ahead and take down that little spoiler banner there. So now that those spoilers are out of the way, to summarize the rest of the review, it's an excellent, dark, violent film. It's left open for others, but like The Joker, I would be satisfied with this being the only story they tell in this version, in this setting. I'm all for, quality over quantity. Whereas Joker did really well, and it wraps up. And sure, I would love to see Joaquin Phoenix play Joker again. I'm fine if they never make another one. I feel the same way about the Batman. I think they just really nailed it. They did a great job, and I think Pattinson did a great job. Sure, I'd like to see more of it, but if they ended it with this film, that's fine. We got a really good installment on this. That's definitely worth checking out. Everyone's performance in this, as I said before, was also top-notch, but if I had to have one criticism about this movie, it would just be the running time, because it's almost 3 hours long, and when something is dark and brooding and cold and violent like this, when it moves along at this slower pace like film noir, that 3 hours can feel to drag usually. We don't get a lot of that. There are some scenes that drag a little bit because they are just dumping all of this information about the story on you. But then that scene is countered with some very violent, action-packed scenes. So when I look back on the total running time, I still have a hard time understanding what they actually could edit out of this, what they could cut down on, because everything was important. And the moment it starts to feel a little bit slow, they just pop in some more action. Next thing you know, 3 hours has flown by. So on one hand, I would like it to be shorter. It's easier to enjoy on rewatches when the films are shorter. But they crammed a lot of story into this, so I understand why we have that 3 hour runtime, similar to Justice League, the Snyder Cut, being 4 hours long. we see what happens when you try to change some of that and trim it down, and it's not good. But when you have that 4-hour runtime, even if you need to split that viewing up into several little sessions, you're going to get a lot more out of the story. So while I do make a criticism about it being long, I have no idea how they could have made it any shorter because everything else is working. But hey, that's it for this video, I guess. I realize that with the flood of reviews, this one may not get a lot of traction because my channel is still really small. It's a tiny little channel here. But I wanted to share a little something about it because I really enjoyed this one. And I think you should give it a shot. See what Pattinson brings to the table with this. With this iteration of Batman, I think he did a great job and I think you'll enjoy it. And speaking of enjoying, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to do all that YouTube stuff I mentioned before, all the like, subscribe, bells, and shares, and back catalog stuff. And I will see you in the next one.